You're watching KCRG TV9. Now, from your 24-hour news source, this is KCRG TV9 News at 5.
This is a live look over the city of Vinton this evening. The Cedar River there is creeping up to some homes and into backyards on the north side of this Benton County community. That river will not be cresting there until sometime overnight.
And this is a live look at the river in Cedar Rapids tonight, the Cedar River. It is officially flooding. Things are at minor stage right now, but that river is expected to reach the second highest point in the city's history. We have live team coverage from Vinton, Cedar Rapids, and many other communities experiencing flooding in eastern Iowa. If you want to see world news, that is on right now on KCRG 9.2.
But we are starting off tonight with meteorologist Joe Winters to get the latest on those very important river levels. Joe?
And we'll begin in Independence, where we are watching the Wapsie as well. Two rivers right now really undergoing some flooding. Take a look at our Independence City Cam. It's live right now. Look across the raging waters. Notice on that far cement wall, that water line a little bit higher where it's kind of, you can see that darker color. That means in Independence right now we have crested and the Wapsipinicon has begun to fall. In fact, right now, the latest that we have a 19.2 foot level, 19.4 was the crest earlier this afternoon. Along the Wapsie, for those of you in Anamosa, right now it's 17.1, so it's coming up quite fast, and by Tuesday we are expecting a 24.5 foot crest. It will fall within its banks once again by Saturday morning. Now let's travel down the Cedar from north to south. Charles City, you're at 13.7. The good news is Charles City, you're falling faster. You will fall back within your banks early tonight. In Janesville, 15.7 currently. You crested yesterday. Late Monday is when the river will be back in its banks. In Cedar Falls, crested yesterday at 98.9, currently at 97.5. In Waterloo, the current level sits at 22. 22.9 was the crest yesterday. Early Thursday is when the Cedar and Waterloo will be back in its banks. As Bruce mentioned earlier, Vinton awaiting that crest. 21.5 the expected crest Monday morning. Right now, the latest that we have from Vinton is 20.9 feet. Again, still has about another half a foot to go before that crest early tomorrow. In Cedar Rapids, the latest forecast, which was updated earlier today, 23 feet currently. That will happen on Tuesday morning. The flood is in progress as we've jumped above that 12-foot level. Right now, the latest that we have is at 13.1 feet in Cedar Rapids. The flooding will come to an end with the river in its banks on Saturday morning. So the next four impacts that we have to watch for in Cedar Rapids, we're at 13.1 right now. 13.5 affecting the lowest sections of Palo. At 14.2, we're talking about the lowest sections of C Street Southwest near Prairie Creek being affected. It affects the parks along the river between 1st and 3rd Avenue at 15.2. And at 15.5, that's going to affect the lowest sections of Old River Road Southwest. That's over by the Roller Dam in Cedar Rapids. So again, that's what we're watching. Currently, again, the Cedar River in Cedar Rapids sitting at 13.1 feet. 23 feet even Tuesday morning is the expected crest. We'll continue to monitor the levels and update them, of course, through the newscast and through the nighttime hours. Bruce and Beth?
Thank you, Joe. And as Joe just mentioned moments ago, the Cedar River in Vinton is set to crest at 21.5 feet tonight. This is a live look at the current river level in Vinton right now. The city has finished all preparations for the flooding, however.
Now people there can only wait and watch. KCRG TV9's Brea Love has the latest from Vinton.
We're at Celebration Park right next to downtown Vinton, and it wasn't underwater just a few hours ago, but now the water has moved all the way out to here. The city's fire station, which houses the town's electrical systems, also sits along the river. It was a 3-day community effort to get everything protected. The community sandbagged and built this HESCO barrier. Benton County Emergency Management says the barrier is holding and should keep power on during the entire event. The 150 bridge on 1st Avenue is closed, along with many other bridges and roads in the town's low points. Emergency Management Coordinator Scott Hansen says now that all preparations are done, residents can watch, but need to remember to be careful.
No need to drive in it, no need to be in it in any way, and if you see emergency vehicles trying to make a response, definitely kind of stay out of that way. If we get any fire or EMS calls or anything like that that go on a normal day, just try to stay out of the way like you normally should and just let the officials do their jobs.
Benton County Emergency Management says the river will subside to about 17 feet on Wednesday, but until then it asks all residents to stay out of the floodwaters and remember, never drive through them. In Benton, Brea, KCRG TV9 News.
And of course, all that water is making its way downriver to Cedar Rapids, and the city is recommending people who live inside the evacuation area that they have set up along the river, both sides of the river, to evacuate that area by 8 o'clock tonight.
Those are voluntary, not mandatory evacuations, but then a curfew will be in place from 8 tonight till 7 tomorrow morning.
Police and other law enforcement agencies will patrol the area, but they will let people go back into the flood zone if there is no flooding and if those people do have proper identification. And second and third shift employees will be able to go back to their homes and get any belongings they might have as well. For a closer look at this map, really in detail, let's go to meteorologist Justin Gehrts.
We've been showing these flood inundation maps numerous times over the past few days, and this map is indicating a 23-foot crest in the Cedar Rapids area. It extends from Palo down to the Highway 30 bridge. So we'll start off in the northern part of that area. Around Palo again, when things get to 23 feet for that crest coming up tomorrow night, would expect that to be hitting the Drake neighborhood, or rather the Drake Drive neighborhood, back toward Lincoln Drive, Thompson, around Lynn Drive as well. Kind of on the southeast side of town is where I would anticipate some of that flooding to take over. Also on the northeast side of town where Blair's Ferry comes into town, there's a gas station up there. Floodwater gets generally to about 1st Street as you come into the town of Palo. Heading downstream, we have a lot of those parks and other just nature areas that would be affected as we head downstream. Heading down towards Seminole Valley Park, also going to be seeing water taking over that area. There are a couple of neighborhoods along the river as we get closer to Edgewood Road. Coming up this evening, there is a full expectation that Edgewood Road Bridge is going to get closed. That's right here at 23 feet. The water is going to be covering up the approaches to that. They, of course, plan to close off that access before that becomes an issue. As we look farther downstream along Ellis, we continue to see some flooding on there. This spills into Cedar Lake and affects areas underneath 380, close to Coe College. So close to Coe Road is where we would see some of that flooding take place by tomorrow night. Also in the Time Check neighborhood, from the river all the way back just beyond Ellis Boulevard northwest, perhaps as far west as 9th or 10th Street, we would see that potential for flooding. One thing I want to mention, too, is this assumes there are no things that are able to keep the water back, assuming no HESCO barriers, assuming no sandbagging. If things go according to plan, this area in blue will actually be a little bit less than what we would show on this map, just because those precautions would be taking place. Closer to downtown, we do see that extending a couple blocks on the east side of the river, also covering up the approaches to the 1st through 3rd Avenue bridges, also extending west of the river all the way up to about 6th or 7th Street. Heading farther downstream, we've been talking a lot about the Czech Village area as well as Newbo. At 23 feet, we extend that, see that extending pretty much encompassing all those areas. That'll be an issue that we have to watch for. Again, though, there's been a lot of sandbagging and preparations going on in those places, and we can hope that'll hold in those areas. We'll head farther back downstream here, looking back toward Prairie Creek. We've taken a lot of questions about what are the impacts in that area. Prairie Creek will back up. We're already seeing some flooding around the Jones Park Golf Course, also near the Tate Cummins Park. That extends back off toward the west, and eventually the impacts aren't quite as strong as you get back towards 6th Street Southwest. We'll probably be approaching 6th Street Southwest, but whether or not it'll flood there remains to be seen. We'll also back off toward the east just a bit, closer to Highway 30. Full expectation is Highway 30 will remain open. However, at 23 feet, it does get close to Highway 13 north of the interchange there. So we'll have to watch 13 coming up later on tomorrow night. But one thing is very confident is that we will not have issues on Highway 30 or 380. Those are going to be your main thoroughfares across the Cedar River, both north, or rather through the city of Cedar Rapids, as well as east of Cedar Rapids. We go now to the west side of the river. Jordee is joining us now with an update from there.
Thanks, Justin. I'm here on 5th Street Northwest, and I just want to give you a run through of what I'm seeing here. As you can see behind me, there's some neighbors that are, moving what they don't need out of their homes right now. Now, I spent this afternoon in this area and the Time Check area, and I would say it's pretty safe to say a good majority of people here are actually already gone for that voluntary evacuation. Now, let's take a walk just quickly down here. As you can see, there's a lot of homes that have sandbags, the plastic, even, some wooden boards over the doors. And, that's a pretty common procedure for this area here. A lot of people tell me that they've been preparing for this potential flood since Thursday when, the news first broke. And, they spent the weekend. So a lot of neighbors tell me that, their homes are prepared right now and there's no use just standing around and waiting for this. So they're going to go and know where they know it's safe. And that, I think, is a really good idea. Let's take a walk back over here. Thank you so much to our great photographer, Rebecca, here. As you can see behind me, more homes over to behind me are sandbagging. We're getting ready for this potential flood up here. Now, I just want to say again that most of the people here have done that voluntary evacuation. There are a few people here that I've spoken to that plan to stay here through 8 p.m. tonight, and they'll stay in their homes tonight, and then they're going to reevaluate, they say, tomorrow morning. But again, people are recommended to leave their homes whenever they are ready. And again, we're out here live. I'll be out here live giving you the latest reports. Reporting live in Cedar Rapids, Jordee, Kalk, KCRG TV9 News.
Thank you, Jordee. Good information there. Piles and piles of sandbags surround buildings and covered doorways all through downtown Cedar Rapids. It's really been a massive effort involving many, many people getting all that protection in place. Let's go now to KCRG TV9 Samantha Myers, who is live in the downtown area. Samantha?
It is very quiet on the streets of downtown Cedar Rapids right now. I don't know if you can see, there's not a car in sight, and there's only 2 people out walking right now. Most of the businesses, if not all of the businesses, are boarded up or have sandbags in some way. Earlier, I was at Iowa Brewing Company, and that's where we found some people still sandbagging. And all that hard work was rewarded with free beer, because the owner told me he had some kegs that just didn't fit on the truck.
We spent the day moving things from 3 feet up to 5 feet and then 8 feet, and we needed 10 feet. So, but now we had many more volunteers. It's amazing what free beer can do.
And while we were there, a man pulled up with a truckload of sandbags, and he was just offering the sandbags to them. He saw that they needed help, and that just kind of shows the teamwork that has gone into this sandbagging effort in downtown Cedar Rapids. Live in downtown Cedar Rapids, Samantha Myers, KCRG TV9 News.
Thank you, Sam. We want to give you some phone numbers now to call if you just happen to be in the Cedar Rapids flood zone and you still need some help. These are numbers for the United Way of East Central Iowa. From a landline, simply dial 211. And from a cell phone, the number to call is 319-739-4211. If you need a place to stay during the evacuation, there were now 2 emergency shelters in Cedar Rapids. One is at the Cedar Hills Community Church. That's at 6455 E Avenue Northwest. That's east of the intersection for Stony Point Road Northwest. The second shelter they started today, that is at St. Paul's United Methodist Church at 1340 3rd Avenue Southeast.
Alliant Energy says it does not anticipate widespread outages in Cedar Rapids, but will be shutting off power in flooded areas. And people even beyond the flooded areas could experience a loss of power. Could. Now, those who want to have Alliant shut down their power for them, they can call this number, 1-800-255-4268. Say the word emergency to the person on the phone, and they know to connect you quickly to the right person. Alliant has already shut off power to about 40 homes in Palo that are closest to the river. Meanwhile, Mid-American Energy has cut natural gas to at least 1,100 customers in the Cedar Rapids evacuation zone, and the company expects to cut 1,700 more customers by tomorrow. The city of Cedar Rapids says it will not be collecting garbage, recycling, or yard waste within the evacuation area this week. All other areas will have normal collection.
Cedar Rapids has closed quite a few streets, as you can imagine, ahead of the flooding. Now, the city has already shut off all of the downtown bridges, all the way from the 1st Avenue Bridge through the 16th Avenue Bridge. And right now, it looks like the city will be closing the Edgewood Road Bridge on the west side of town this evening, but the I-380 bridge will stay open. And that will mean the only ways to get across the river will be the I-380 bridge and Highway 30 to the east of the city. Other road closures include Ellis Road west of Edgewood, Otis Road along the Sac and Fox Trail, and you're going to run into barriers as streets are closed during this flood period. And some I-380 ramps to and from the downtown Cedar Rapids area are also closed, keeping people out of the downtown. So essentially that means don't expect to get off or onto the interstate anywhere near the river. You can do that on 7th Street north of the river and on Wilson Avenue south of the river. And again, as we said, the I-380 bridge, though, will stay open.
There are school closures in Cedar Rapids tomorrow because of the flooding. The Cedar Rapids Community School District is closed tomorrow through Wednesday. The Cedar Rapids Metro Catholic schools in the city are also closed those same days. And we just got this in late this afternoon. Mount Mercer University is canceling classes tomorrow and Tuesday. One other note, the city's 2 hospitals, St. Luke's Hospital and Mercy Medical Center, are expected to be operating normally during the flood, even though they are within that evacuation zone. Be aware, though, you might have to find alternate routes to get to those hospitals with much of downtown closed off. Let's check in now with meteorologist Chris Havley. Chris, a much-needed dry week ahead?
Yes, indeed. We certainly need that dry weather and some good news coming our way as early as later this evening. Now, we did have some rainfall last night, and it did fall in mostly western and northern parts of the TV9 viewing area. Here's a look at the 24-hour rainfall totals from yesterday. You can see generally around 1/4 of an inch up to about 7/10 of an inch fell in some localized areas, but that rain mostly fell in far northwestern parts of the TV9 viewing area. Not expecting this rainfall to have much of an impact on the upcoming crest, especially for Vinton and also in Cedar Rapids. A live look right now at pinpoint Doppler radar. We do have some leftover showers here behind the actual cold front, still over to the east of Cedar Rapids, down towards Iowa City and Washington. This is not amounting to much. It is moving off pretty quickly toward the east, and we're expecting these light showers to come to an end here pretty quickly. Got a nice picture here from the southwest side of Cedar Rapids, over by the old Kmart. Some really great community coming together here in Cedar Rapids, doing a lot of sandbagging there. And this picture was actually sent to us via the First Alert Facebook page. We've got a lot of great pictures of the ongoing effort for those flood preparations. If you'd like to send us a picture, just feel free to go to the First Alert weather app, download it from Google Play or the Apple App Store. Send us a picture by simply going to the bottom part of the app, selecting the Submit button, and you can send videos or pictures to us, and we do greatly appreciate anything you can share with us. Your First Alert for tonight and going into tomorrow, we're looking at quiet conditions, which is good news, and this weather pattern looks to stick with us here for the next couple of days. In fact, we'll take a look at pinpoint futurecast, at least for the short term. A little bit of cloud cover with us right now and some of that light drizzle. It's not going to affect the river levels much, if any, for the rest of our night tonight. As the cold front continues to push off toward the east, drier conditions behind it. We'll also see some clearer skies for the overnight hours, and we're going to see some sunnier skies coming up for our Monday as well. Now look right now at the overall pattern, though, for this upcoming week. That cold front continues to move off toward the east. It means we're in store for a cool and windy stretch. We'll see that continuing with us here for at least the rest of the next coming week. We're going to stay rain-free all the way through the rest of the work week, and I'm sure many areas will need that dry time. Now, this will give us some time for those rivers to recede. It's going to take quite some time for those to occur. In fact, some rivers will remain well above their banks all the way through the rest of the week. Coming up in a bit, we'll talk more about that extended forecast and talk about that next chance for rain. For now, let's toss it back to Bruce and Beth.
So different from 8 years ago when that heavy rain just did not seem to want to end at all.
Really exacerbated a difficult situation. We're so fortunate we're not seeing anything like that right now. The community of Palo is also bracing for flooding as the Cedar keeps rising.
Yeah, people have evacuated dozens of homes in that community this weekend. KCRG TV9's Dave Franzman has been spending the afternoon in that Lynn County community and joins us now.
So Dave, as we mentioned, Alliance already cut off electricity to some homes there in Palo.
Beth, actually, we're going to have to correct that. I just talked to some residents in the area where they were going to shut off the power. Now, they told me at 2 o'clock, but the residents say that hasn't happened yet, and the reason is Alliant has holding off until the very last minute to do that in case they don't have to. They're basically seeing what the crest of the river is in Vinton, which is upstream from here, and if they think they can handle it, they may not shut the power off. Now, take a little bit of a look behind me here. You can see this is Lynn Drive on the southeast side of Palo, and about 3 hours we came through here and the road was perfectly dry. It's about 6 inches out there. The Army Corps of Engineers had some people out there looking at that a little bit earlier. Now, as we go to some of the video from earlier, again, the utility crews were trying to cut the power to just the homes where the city had ordered the evacuation earlier. Now, unless the water rises a lot higher than expected, that may be only about 80 to 100 homes in all. Now, while the evacuation order here is mandatory, authorities are not going to force anyone to leave, but strongly encourage it. Now, one resident says their plan for most of the family to pack up and go while one stays behind to try and protect the home.
Husband's going to stay. We got 3 sumps going, and hopefully he can ride out. He said once it starts coming up to our barrier, he's going to pull out. He'll take his truck and get moving.
Earlier today, the city of Palo experienced a sewer line break and asked all community members to not flush toilets or put any water down the drains. Now, the mayor tells me that appeal worked and the crisis has eased, although the sewer line is not fixed yet. Now, we are coming back live. You can see this is the Palo city limit sign right here, and there is one home that could well be the first to see the water, and it's creeping closer and closer. It's just not quite gotten there yet, but obviously it is coming up as we speak. Now, if the crest is 6 or 7 feet below what it was in 2008, that's the expectation here, then the belief is that many people can ride it out with maybe damage limited to the basements. Live in Palo, Dave Franzman, KCRG TV9 News.
Important update. Thank you so much, Dave. We are also following flooding along the Wapsipinicon River tonight. In Independence, the swollen Wapsi has created some strong currents. Look at that. Several businesses, you see them there, are taking on water, as is the mill. That's what that structure is, the museum, the mill. Now, those people all had warnings, so many of the businesses did get stuff out of their basements ahead of the rising water. The Wapsipinicon Mill Museum, I don't know if you could see it there, but its basement windows were open. That was intentional, to let the floodwaters flow through there to try to ease that a bit. People who live in Independence say they did have more preparation compared to in 08, but we talked to one man who was not here in 08. He's from New York, just moved to Independence, and says this is all a bit much.
There is a little bit, streams getting out of the banks, but this level is just amazing to me. It's awesome in the true word of shocking and beautiful and scary all in one sentence.
We feel ya. Independence is more than 7 feet above flood stage right now. The crest is set for 19.3. At last check, I'm going to look at our meteorologists, see if they agree. It was 19.24-ish, and it is falling in Independence. Good news. Highway 150 to get into Independence is closed due to flooding. The Wapsi is also rising in Central City. The water's rushing under bridges, leaving at least one playground and trail underwater. We appreciate the people who sent these photos in to us. The river is also approaching at least one road there in Central City.
Now, the Cedar River, as we've reported, has crested up in Cedar Falls and Waterloo. That happening yesterday, but that does not mean that the flood situation is over in those communities yet, because that flood water is going to be around for a few days yet. And it's still rising downstream in Vinton, Palo, and Cedar Rapids. So let's check in with Joe now to get the latest on those river levels. And some of the people are asking, you mentioned Palo, what is the forecast for what it's going to crest at Palo? That information is just not available. There's some information to see how high the river is, but it really doesn't give any context of what that would do in any one area, and there's no forecast information on some of those communities in between. So we're not forgetting about you. We do know you're out there. You just kind of base things on what you see from the areas that we're seeing the forecast currently. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Cedar River in Cedar Falls. We mentioned the flood's still ongoing. Yes, the crest was yesterday. We're still well above flood stage. In fact, in Cedar Falls, we won't fall below flood stage until late on Saturday. Waterloo as well won't fall below flood stage until early Thursday, currently at 22 feet, so that's about a foot lower than when we crested yesterday at 22.95. In Vinton, the current stage sits, the latest update we have, at 20.9, expecting about another half-foot rise. That heads into early tomorrow morning, and then again not falling below flood stage until Thursday afternoon. And since we last joined you, we do have an update for the Cedar River and Cedar Rapids as far as the
flood level right now. We were at 13.1. We went up about to 13.4. We are going up very, very fast now as we move through the next 30 hours with that crest expected at 23 feet on Tuesday morning. That would be approximately about a half a foot as we do move through each hour. We'll continue to watch that rise very fast as now that crest is moving in from Vinton down towards Cedar Rapids. As far as additional, one person did ask a little farther downstream in Conesville, 13.7, currently expecting that crest at 18.1. That happens Thursday night. And as we mentioned, of course, along the Wapsie, we still are continuing to see flooding in Independence, but it is falling. 19.2 currently, 24.5. That's the expected crest as we move through Anamosa as well along the Wapsie. Again, that comes a little bit later in the week. That's a look at the latest we have for our river levels. Bruce and Beth, back to you.
Thank you, Joe. Some businesses near the in the Nubo district in Cedar Rapids feel like they're kind of on the wrong side of the flood wall that the city has built in that area. That's because the city chose not to put up all of those HESCO barriers around their businesses.
But the city says barriers there beyond 16th Avenue just wouldn't be effective because it's not flat. Some shops are not buying that. KCRG TV9's Phil Reed is live in Nubo tonight.
Phil, so what are those businesses doing to keep floodwaters away from them?
Well, behind me is a Nubo flood wall right here, and it is about 12 feet high. But this wall does not cover any of these businesses over here. As you can see, many of them are fending for themselves. They have put out sandbags to try to keep some of the flood waters out for entering their shops. But if you take a look at Tornado's Grub and Pub, they actually went above and beyond. Volunteers spent the past couple of days building this 5-foot tall flood wall. Now it's built with half-inch plywood and is backed wood with sand, all this sand over here. And if you could just take a look down here, you can see that they do have sandbags, which goes all around the building as they are trying to keep the flood waters from damaging their business. Now, the owner tells me that he will stay here all week. They actually plan on having a generator, which they will keep outside, and they will be running. And as I said, he will stay here all week trying to fight the flood waters because he said he does not want to have to make another insurance claim.
It's disappointing because I put a lot of time and money and effort into restoring this building and trying to create an atmosphere where this neighborhood would grow, and now to be left out of it, just kind of feel like nothing I did was for any good.
Looking at it structurally, this is obviously going to be the best placement for it. You have a long stretch of concrete, and in order to really form that waterproof barrier, I can't put it on, you're not going to be able to put it on soil.
Now, the owner of Tornado's Grub and Pub argues that the land behind their business is flat and there is a barrier. Then the barrier in the alley actually could have worked. Now, in a couple minutes, you will hear from the owner of Tornado's Grub and Pub, and he'll kind of give his side of the story and why he says he will stay here and fight the flood waters. Live in Cedar Rapids, Phil Reed, KCRG TV9 News.
Wow, all that work going into that. And now, what do you do with all those sandbags when floodwater starts going down? Well, Cedar Falls and Waterloo have answered that question by donating thousands of new and full sandbags to Cedar Rapids. And while those come in, volunteers are still filling sandbags in Cedar Rapids. Today, students, staff, and alumni from Coe College, along with all kinds of volunteers, got to work out there with their shovels, throwing bags into the back of vehicles, pickups, everything that could carry them. This was the effort in the Nubo district this afternoon. If you have ever done this, this is back-breaking work, but as you can see, these people were going at it full force. They're helping to save that part of Cedar Rapids that's been rebuilt and revived since the 2008 flood. For anyone who wants to help with sandbagging efforts, there still are 3 sites open in Cedar Rapids. One is at the former Kmart on 16th Avenue and Williams Boulevard Southwest. Another is at Hawkeye Downs. The third is at the Ellis Park Pavilion. But the only way to get to the Ellis Park Pavilion is by Zika Avenue, just like the mosquito.
And volunteers removed the seats from inside Paramount Theater in Cedar Rapids this morning. The theater had been completely renovated and restored after the 2008 flood. Now it is forecast to take on water when the Cedar River crests. So the theater removed its famous organ yesterday and removed these seats this morning. And now the Paramount Theater looks like this.
Wow. We have continuing coverage of the flooding preparations in Cedar Rapids tonight.
We will be checking back in on the preparations happening across the city at this hour. Stay with us.